Why you not prepared? Why is it science project, bro? Every time I fucking come over here.
What's the
But
worst?
you was a professional.
What's the worst session you had like that? Like,
Oh my God, I had so many coming up.
do you ever have like really threatening, like, oh shit, okay?
No, nobody ever threatened me personally, but I definitely did a lot of like COD. Are we going?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Okay.
So yeah, if you don't want to say names.
No, I was just saying like, 'cause
Well,
this might be a good story, so you should get this. You know?
Okay, nice.
Yeah, we do like soft rolls. We don't do like an intro or anything.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
Light. Was it No Sins like that too? Like,
Yeah.
Just go. Yeah. Anyway, I had hella COD cash sessions that would be like late night sessions. So when I first started, I might be doing like label stuff in the day, and as an assistant, and then do that all day long till like midnight or whatever. And then here comes like some cash like session from some dudes not signed, you know, just coming from the club or coming from wherever. And we would work like until 9, 10 a.m. in the morning sometimes, you know, just, and yeah, it was wild, you know, like guns out on the table sometimes, you know, shit like that. Yeah.
That was like peak Cash Money era, probably, or was it?
Yeah,
was
in New York, we didn't have a lot of Cash Money sessions in New York, but it was more like either, you know, just dudes coming from the boroughs, you know, and like, but they were all really cool. Like, there was only one session like that I had that was the guy was sketchy, and yeah, and he was cool to me. They were always cool to me. I always showed love and respect and worked really hard, so they just showed love. Yeah, but there were sometimes like I would have certain assistants that would be working with me to say the wrong thing, and they'd be like, I'm like, all right, you need to get out of here. Like, you know, I'm like, there was one case where like this guy said something and while the talkback was down, he said the wrong thing, and the dude in there heard something he didn't like, and he ran out of the booth, and I was like, J-Ro, get out of here now. Or like, I was like, go, you know what I mean? Like, and I was like, go on the stairwell, like, run, you know? Like, and and then I kind of like, guy was like, dude, he's a young kid, he's stupid, he said the wrong thing, you know. I kicked him out. He's never coming back. I'm sorry about that. The guy's like, "Cool, you better not come back in here." I had one situation like that, but the guy was cool. The intern was just out of line. You know?
Oh, really? Yeah.
He said something a bit crazy.
Yeah, he was just out of line. You know, but he didn't realize the talkback was held down. Like, you know, so.
But still, it's
the classic.
It's mad to be saying stuff.
Yo, it's just like, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway,
how was your NAM? You're at NAM?
Yeah. No, it was super fun.
Yeah. Did you do any panels or anything like that?
Yeah, I did. Wavy Wayne. Like I did a cool interview with Wavy Wayne. That was fun. Nice. With Leslie and Baines, the homies, and that was fun. And then what else did we do? I did WSDG, the architectural firm. I consulted on Sony Music Publishing Studios.
Oh wow!
Build,
all right.
And they were the architects involved. So I did something with them. And then what else did I do?
Oh, I wish I knew something like that was going on. I would have gone to that. I didn't even know.
Yeah, it was just like a quick one. Yeah, it was just a quick one because they had a little small booth. I was just walking by and they were like, "Hey, you want to do one?" I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Oh, sick! They just grabbed you over.
Yeah, we did it the next day, but yeah, it was kind of impromptu.
Yeah.
What else did I do? I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank. But yeah, I just kind of walk around and things kind of organically happen. Yeah. I did one with Jesse Ray. Y'all gonna hang out with later.
Yeah,
sure. That was cool. He asked good questions. It was real short and stuff. But really, I just love walking around and bumping into my friends, and you know.
I was gonna ask,
finding Chad Blake.
how do you find that thing? Because we talked about this with like now mix engineers become, and especially at NAM, kind of becoming superstars, becoming very recognized. I just get the vibe you keep a slightly lower profile and like.
Yeah, I mean it's fun to go and because it's a bunch of nerds like engineers, you know, type of, you know, it's cool. It's cool and for people that enjoy the work and want to be engineers, aspiring engineers and producers to be able to like walk up and talk with the people they respect. And it's the same way for me, you know, like it's just going around and finding people that I admire. And being able to walk up and be like, "Yo, I appreciate what you do, man. You inspire me. I love what you did on that record. Like, or how'd you do that? Or like, oh, it's so cool, you know." So it's just, you know, it's a love fest. It's super fun, you know.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, it's a lot of. I didn't go for a long time. This is on my third NAM.
Oh, okay.
I was in New York for years. And I went to AES a handful of times. But
it's kind of on its way out now. AES.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody's out here. You know?
Yeah, that's it. They're saying they're going to move it to Long Beach next year. AES Long Beach.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know if
Interesting. I don't know how that's gonna work.
Don't know if that's secret. I might have to cut that. But yeah, it's no. I think it's fairly well known. It's gonna go to Long Beach. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Was there any like cool new pieces of gear or anything that you saw out there that spiked your interest or anything?
Yeah, no, Cornef. They had some cool plugins, Cornef Audio. Yeah, I was walking around and I spotted Chad Blake because he's my favorite mixer, and I always shout him out because I owe a lot to him in a lot of ways. And he is repping Cornef, and he has his own plugin with them. And I went and checked that out. And all their stuff sounds really cool, especially if you're really into like mangling drums and stuff that's gonna have a lot of vibe and give you a lot of saturation and just like tonal.
I'll have to check their stuff out.
It's really good. Everybody should check it out. And then Audio Punks, I'm gonna check out their stuff. And I still haven't tried it yet, but I can't wait to try Leslie's plugins.
The Safari pedals.
Bull bass.
They sent it to me couple of weeks early because I do videos for him, and it's a cool sounding plugin, to be fair.
Yeah, it's got to be, I guess.
With
him involved.
I think they were saying like the idea was like it was never an issue, like it was just they knew exactly what they wanted to do, and the sound was like instant. But apparently they had a bit of back and forth about like the GUI, like what it looked like.
Oh right.
But because like obviously Safari pedals have like a set way they
very
like
defined.
their plugins to look.
Yeah, they have a very
And Leslie's probably like
vibrant.
I want it to look different. Do you know what I mean? So, but it's a good plugin. You should check it out for sure. You saying about you did some like console with Sony and helped them with their room building.
Oh yeah.
You
Sony Music Pub. Yeah.
You built you redid this studio recently, right?
This room we're in. Yeah. I mean, I'm always evolving it. I've been here 5 years. This is in my house.
We're in Stuart's house, so thanks for that.
Yeah. And I've tried a lot of different speaker companies, and I've landed on these. The Augsburgers, I really love, and these PMC A2s, and then I really love these Norman 310s. They're down low, like they're on motors, so I can lift them up and down for like a near field type of experience. But these three I really, really love.
Yeah, we were playing some music before we started rolling, and the Augsburgers was just like in my chest.
Yeah.
Like super loud. The bass response was great.
Yeah.
It made me feel very good about my mix, to be fair.
Shit was jamming.
Because you came through New York. Is that like a New York thing? Like at Quad, having big Augsburgers and things like that?
When I first started at Quad, they had Dyne Audios, and they didn't have subwoofers when we first started. And it was they sounded good, but they didn't hit. And it wasn't until they changed ownership that they got Augsburgers at the studios. And now they have all their rooms are slapping. They got the pro audio design Augsburgers specifically. Those are the ones to get, by the way. There's two different types of them out there, and the pro audio designs are the ones.
Yeah. Who was there around the same time you were there? How long were you there for?
Shoot. I mean, I was back and forth. I started in the early 2000s at Quad as an assistant/engineer. And it was like the days of like I assisted with Guru and Just Blaze on Blueprint 2, and then like Alicia Diary album, assisted on those. I never got credited on either of those, but it's all good. It's all good. I was there.
Well, you said it now.
That's it.
Just Blaze actually, like, he posted a pic of a 1/2-inch reel of Hovey Baby one time. And Guru noticed that it had my name as the assistant, and so he tagged me. He's like, Stuart White was the assistant on Hovey Baby. So I was like,
yes,
it's proof I was there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was that era of music, and so I was doing a lot of that, and then I was there for like 3 years, and then I went to work for Alicia in Long Island, Alicia Keys, with Ann Mincielli. And I was engineering/assisting, There was the Crucial Keys artist back then that I was engineering a lot for, and then I would assist for Alicia mostly. And that was when I first started traveling to LA, like with Ann and team. And I would like record demo writers in like one room, and then like they'd be in the other room. So yeah, and then I came back to Quad after that. I started freelancing and started working with Alicia's production partner, Carrie. And we came back to Quad and we had like 2 rooms at Quad for like a year. So I was there as an engineer. That's around the time that they got the Augsburgers and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
They changed ownership.
Yeah, I feel like Quad's quite like a big finishing school. It seems like a lot of the big guys now out in LA had kind of passed through there at various points.
Yeah, no, it's like a rite of passage type of studio.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, even before my time, like Russ Elevato came out of there, and oh man, I'm forgetting the G Unit guy. God, Pat Viala came out of there. Trying to think, a lot of people came out of that studio. The thing is, they're an incubator for talent when it comes to engineers, just because they give you a lot of access to the studio, and they give you the ability to develop, and they threw me right in. I mean, I interned for like a week, and then I started assisting, and then I remember on some of my first assisting gigs, I'd be assisting Doug Wilson or something. He's a mixer from New York, and I'd be assisting him. And I remember one time he was on the phone, and he was having a spirited conversation with someone that he knew, and he was like trying to have this conversation and punch vocals at the same time. And he was like, "Bro," he's like, "You know Pro Tools?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, good, run it." He went out in the balcony and had his spirited conversation, and I'm like, I'm engineering, and this is like probably after like 10 days of being at Quad.
Oh wow!
So I got thrown right into it, and then doing those COD cast sessions at night. I was always doing that stuff and just never sleeping. Just
okay. And were those like at Quad? So like Quad in the evening sessions when people weren't wanting to be there, they'd let like other guys come in and stuff like that, and like as you were saying, like cash sessions and stuff.
Yeah, it was kind of just a free for all of just stuff coming in randomly, because people, they would just call up, at 12 o'clock at night, 1 in the morning, and be like, "Yo, we want a room," and Quad was always open, and they would take it pretty much any session, and if it wasn't a label or something like that, they would just take the cash up front.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So dudes would come in and be like, "Yo, how much is the MPC?" And they'd be like counting out, small bills, and like how much is the room? All right, bet. How much is the engineer? All right, cool. And they just like pay it all up front, and then we do the sessions. And
do you remember any like artists that sort of like popped out from those sessions, those cash sessions that were happening? Like they weren't signed, and then now they're like, oh. Later on, now they're great artists.
Oh
big
man,
things.
yeah. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there is. There were so many. It's a blur, and it was a while ago. It was over 20 years ago. Not to like make me seem old, but it was a long time ago. But I did so many of them. I did hundreds of them. So it's hard to remember everybody. But I'm sure, some did. But I was also, in those days, there was like a lot of J Records work, a lot of R&B stuff, like Mario, Ruben Studdard, Harold Lilly. I did a lot of sessions. He was writing a lot of hits back then, and his engineer was a close friend, the late great Kamel Abdo, rest in peace. He was the engineer for Harold, and I assisted, and we were doing a ton of stuff for J Records and everybody, just as far as like a songwriting factory.
Yeah,
Harold was just writing 3 songs a day, just it was a lot of that. And just it was just nonstop.
Do you remember sort of like the period in time where you started to transition from being an assistant tracking engineer to starting to be able to like sink your teeth into mixing?
Definitely. I mean, I was always doing my like mixes, on the side, and we did a lot of free time at Quad, and I would always take tracks and stuff I'd recorded or like side projects. Some of my friends, were rappers from Full Sail. My roommates were rappers. Sometimes they'd come up to New York and we'd work on stuff. And I was always trying to do the best mixes I could, and and always trying to push that. And the first time I got a project to mix, it was a rock band. Actually, it was I came in as the assistant, and then the engineer I think the engineer just didn't connect with the project,
Okay.
and then kind of like drifted over to the side, and I just kind of like started doing the project, and then ended up mixing that, and it came out cool. Like it wasn't like amazing. I go back and listen to it probably now, I'd be like, oh my god, But still, like, I was always just thinking like a mixer in the sense of just, but I never, like these days, I feel like everybody's like, man, they just want to be like a mixer, you know, like, and I just wanted to be a working engineer, you know, I was just like, and my favorite engineers, they were always the ones, you know, from the old days where they were like tracking and mixing, or they just, you know, if you're a great tracking engineer, you're already thinking about the mix, you know, you're tracking the mix, you know, you're just trying to get it as close as you can.
Yeah, of course.
It's not like a separate process. Like the minute you start recording two sounds and you put them together, now you're mixing. In a way. You know, it might not be good, or it could be, you know, levels of good or bad, but still, it's like we're always mixing.
Yeah, even if it's subconscious, you're just kind of blending it in and creating the sound, and you have to, especially if you're with the artist, because if you're just like tracking, the record's gonna sound shit. Like wherever you're looking at.
And people don't want to work with engineers that just, because I've seen engineers that come, or up and coming people come to me and they're like, I just want to track, I don't want to mix, and I was like, well, you know, you're always mixing, whether you choose, you know, in a way, you're either doing it good or bad in a sense. So it's that mentality, I think, is like the wrong mentality to have, you know. It's just but yeah, no, as far as when I started getting actual like mixes that were like coming out, I guess it'd be like maybe like 6 or 7 years in, you know. And I assisted a long time, you know. I was engineering and assisting, doing both for a long time, and I was happy to do it. I wasn't rushing into stuff. I wasn't like, you know, posting mad pics on my MySpace, being like, I'm a mixer, you know, like I never was like that. I was always just like keeping it chill and just slowly, incrementally moving up type of thing. And, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting, because like sometimes people, like, we spoke to CLA and he talked about that really strict hierarchy back in the day of studios and things like that. Yeah. But it sounds like Quad in that environment was a bit more collaborative, a bit more like, hey, you can jump in it, you know, and a bit more like, you know.
It's interesting. It was they, you know, it was an incubator of like talent, but they always encouraged us to get in the rooms and figure out the gear and learn the gear, and I did, you know. There was a pool table there, and a lot of people would like be up there like playing pool when they, you know, hanging out and shooting the shit. And I was always like in the rooms. I would just patch in all the microphones and just see what they sounded like, you know. I just put them all in a row, and I would just use my voice or anything I could record. Or I remember the girl that I was dating back then, she played piano. I'd bring her in and record the piano, and I put like 20 microphones on it just to see what they all sounded like. Not to have a 20 microphone piano sound, but just to see what they all did, so I could learn them. And then I would do the same thing with all the effects gear. You know, I've always been into effects, so we would like hang out in the rooms late night and like, you know, have a few beverages, you know, and I would like dub everything out. We turn the lights low. We would just play like a CD of like, you know, like a mixed CD or whatever, a bunch of songs, and then I would just dub everything out on the console. So I would just like have all the PCM42s and the TC2290s and the 480s and the Lexicon 960s and like all the effects equipment like up on the console. And I would like create feedback loops with the delays, and I would filter things with the EQs, and I would do these transitions between the songs. Because I came from this turntable, this DJ background, so it was just, that was always fun for me.
Experimenting.
Yeah, I put the whole mix through the music club algorithm in the 960, so the whole mix would sound like ambient in the room, like we were in a club, and everybody would go crazy for it, and everybody's getting drunk and shit in the studio. So this is like the staff and like the friends of the staff. Like, we were completely.
Well, it's unusual because he's got that big that big room in the middle with the pool table. It's quite unusual as a studio. It's like a big space to hang out.
It looks totally different than when I was there. When I was there, it was a completely different vibe. That reception, that 10th floor was only reception in offices, and all the rooms were like locked out from the world. Like they were on separate floors, so you'd be on a floor, right, and the elevator's locked out, so no one could come down without the key. You know, so we would be down there late night, just, you know, 20-year-olds just having a blast. Like
no interruptions,
drinking 40s and just like, you know,
sounds great.
Yeah, having fun, you know. But we were learning at the same time. I was always learning. I was always trying to like see how many things I could patch in, you know, just to like learn how all the equipment worked. And yeah, I was just obsessed with that, you know.
Yeah, well, it's obviously led to an amazing career. Do you know what I mean? You're like wanting to learn, wanting to experiment and pushing through. Like behind you, we've got all of this like crazy gear, some old, some new, loads of pedals and stuff like that. Like, I wonder how much in your like modern mixing process are you patching in any of this stuff and using it?
Honestly, not as much as I used to. I have a lot of pedals. The plugins have gotten really good, but the pedals are really fun too. But I more and more, I want to get back into doing that stuff. But yeah, like for instance, like this ADA flanger, like there's a plugin for that that's really, really good now that I like. I use the plugin version quite a bit, and that Maxon Ibanez tube streamer vibe, like there's a plugin for that that's pretty good. But I have to travel a lot, and I have to be able to pull up all my projects like pretty quickly wherever I'm at, and I don't get the luxury of always being in my room. Unfortunately. So what I will do in a lot of cases too is sometimes I'll use outboard gear to inspire something that I'll like, recreate in here
In
with
a
like
plugin,
plugins, and maybe I'll print that, and and I'll print the Bricasti. I'll use the Bricasti a bunch, and I'll print that. Like the Bricasti I used on the Gambino album because I did that all in this room. And then there's a song, "We Are God." There's like he wanted something really trippy and lush and like like a lot of reverb type of vibe, and I was like, let me fuck with the Bricasti. So
are you running like the full projects for it, or like just certain stems and things?
it's just like I would create a hardware insert on an aux, and I would just like what I'll do is I'll put the effect on an aux, and then I'll feed the aux to an audio track, and then I'll print it every time.
Nice.
I do something.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times I'll take that and I'll edit it and chop it up and mess with whatever I print from the effect there. And then sometimes I'll combine that with plugins. But often I'll do something manually. I'll tweak stuff manually, and then to get a vibe on something, and then put it in here and play with it and just see what I can come up with. Yeah.
Also, pedals can be a bit. I was gonna say, if you're on the road, go somewhere humid.
Oh yeah, they all change every second.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that was at 12 o'clock and now 12
it's
o'clock
all
doesn't
doing
sound
different.
like 12
Yeah.
o'clock. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you about the Childish Gambino album. Like obviously Donald Glover comes across like an insanely creative person in like all elements of his life.
Yeah, 100%.
And obviously I wanted to know like how involved he is even in the mix process.
Super involved. Yeah, no, he's a true artist, through and through. That project, I ended up doing every song on it, and we did it. I did it here. He came by, for some of the days, and once we were deep into it, and there was a lot of it to play, and we would work on stuff together, and he's just the best to work with. Super chill, super collaborative, super patient. Just really, really, really cool guy. Gave me, a lot of time to like work on stuff. Some of the songs came together quite quickly. Some of them I spent like 2 days on.
You said he was still even tracking parts of it here, right?
Yeah. I have another studio on the other side of the house, and it's more like just a little vocal tracking room with some keyboards and stuff in it. And he would go over there with his engineer and cut like little bits of vocals or change lines, change words.
Yeah.
And I would be over here mixing.
Nice. There was one record, it's terrible, I can't remember the name, but it was on that latest album, and it was like almost a rock song, and it was super distorted. I'm gonna have to try and find the name, but I was gonna ask, like, in terms of like the process to that, because it sort of stands out as its own.
Is it
song.
the Lithonia one? The one?
Yes.
Lithonia,
Because I feel like it's the only record on the album that sounds like that.
Yeah. There's a few records on the album that only sound like it. But
it wasn't like very consistent, but it was cool
stylistically. Yeah,
it felt like,
but it all kind of works. Like it's all because it's him. I feel like it all kind of works. And I think I mentioned while he was doing it, I was like, you're one of the few people that could do an album like this, and and make it cool, like, and make it cohesive in a way. But either way, that song is Lithonia. It's a funny story about that one. That one, I had mixed like 4 or 5 songs at that point, and they were getting approved pretty quickly. There was like very minimal notes, and they kept sending me more and more songs. And then when I got to that one, I mixed it and I sent it, and I don't think he liked the mix so much.
Oh, really?
And he wanted it to be more like what it was before. and then but they came out here because I suggested like, hey, what if you want, everybody pull up, and I got speakers here, I did like a little video tour on my phone and showed him the spot, and was like, if you want to pull up out here, like we could work here, and he's like, okay, cool, we'll come out. So he came out, and then when we got to that song, he's like, I kind of like the way it used to be. I don't, and I was like, okay, bet. I was like, we can go back to that. I was like, is there anything from this version that you kind of like better? So we kind of A/B'd, and think Riley was here, his engineer Riley, and I think like, well, the toms kind of sound cool, the way you got them, and it was like maybe, excuse me, one or two other things that they might have liked. I'm like, okay, cool. What I'll do is I'll re-prep the session, and I'll just start over from scratch. So I basically just pulled their entire song, the session they sent me into my template, and then I pulled the elements from my mix that they liked, and I just recombined it kind of in front of him.
Oh, okay.
While he was sitting on the couch, and just like,
yeah, and that's how you found that sweet spot.
yeah, just like reassembled it right there, and I think
That's cool.
it was just, and then we were like, okay, now we're back on track, and then I think I spent like an hour or hour and a half on it, like when he stepped out, just to finalize that. But I do that a lot. Like I'll combine versions.
It's very rocky. Like there's a lot of like distortion and stuff in it, and that's why I wanted to bring that up, because it was like the first time I'd heard him go that deep into it. He sort of teased it in some of his like previous music, like that kind of like bit more punky vibe. But that, because a lot of his like standout records are very like soft or funky. Do you know what I mean?
Well, he did all that stuff that was very George Clinton, funkadelic kind of Parliament stuff.
Well, he was just proving that he could do make a #1 record with that. Like he just wanted that. Apparently it was a bet or something like that.
Oh, serious?
When he made that made that one. Yeah,
I love that album. Yeah,
it's great. But so that's crazy. And so he's very, very much involved. And
100%.
Do you prefer that as a mix engineer to have that creative input? Yeah,
no, I work well with people, and most of the stuff I get is when producers and artists, like working with me, and then they recommend me to their friends or like stuff like that. That's usually how I get gigs. And I know a lot of mixers, like they like to be in their studio, like,
leave
send
me
it
alone.
out, leave me alone type of thing. I like to have my time to get to a place with it by myself, 100%. I don't like anybody in the room, like when I'm mixing, just because like so I can focus. And then once I get it to a place, then I'm like, yeah, bring the party, and then we could tweak the whole album, or in that case, I remix the song in front of them. And I made a joke. I was like, this is every mixer's dream. It's like to remix the song in front of, like in like 5, as fast as you can with the artist sitting on the couch. And he was like, oh man, I love the process. He's like, I really love the process.
Yeah,
so I was like, awesome. But yeah, it came together pretty quickly once I did that. But that is the power of working more in the box too, is just being able to do stuff like that, like combining versions. Like I will do that. Even, I'll mix a song sometimes a couple of times. And because sometimes you spend a whole day just sorting stuff.
Yeah, well, that's why you need the time without the artist there. Because I always say that when I have a client, they're like, oh, can I be there for the whole process? And I'm like, bro, the first like 2-3 hours of this project, you will be asleep, because I'm just doing like boring admin, fixing the project. Like I haven't got like, 20 assistants to help me get all that stuff prepared. Do you know what I mean? So I always try to say like, let me do the first run, and then we're at like a recall stage, come down and we'll
definitely,
try and like finish it.
Yeah, that's what I like too. And but it's just from years of working with Beyonce, and she's on the couch, like right there all the time.
I was gonna ask, how involved is she?
Super involved, yeah, like beyond involved, like
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's.
So you've got used to working like that.
Oh
with her.
Yeah, and I owe a lot, to her in so many ways. But she's pushed me over the years, and I'm just constantly trying to sharpen the blade and get quicker, better at understanding what she wants, faster at recording and mixing at the same time. And I kind of like, in a way, I kind of love that, doing it that way when you
pressure.
Yeah. It's like fun pressure. It's like good pressure, and in a way, and ultimately, if you can do it well, everybody in the room can have a fun time while they're doing it. And I think that's super important for me. I think it's easy for moments to be it can get stressful with deadlines and things like that. So I think it's fun to try to keep it fun in the room as much as you can, keep the positive energy flowing.
How did the relationship with Beyonce start?
Okay. So in 2012 is when I started with her, and I'd been engineering. I'd been in the studio every day for about 10 years at that point. And I had
done you 10,000 hours.
Maybe and so I was the main engineer at Jungle at the time. Ann Mincielli, she had opened Jungle City Studios by that time. About 2010, I think, is when she opened the studio. And I started freelancing, at that studio, doing a lot of sessions there. And right around that time, I did We Are Young by Fun. I had worked on the Fun album with
and that blew up.
It blew up. And We Are Young was actually, I think, number one at the time when the word on the street was B needed a new engineer. And then I think B had been working at Jungle already, so Ann was like, "Oh man, you should do that. Like I'd love to have that session. Like stay here at Jungle. Like you could do that." And I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, maybe. In my mind, I was kind of like really stoked to just be freelancing at that point because like your whole trajectory is like like intern, assistant, engineer, and then you become freelance or whatever. And after working with Alicia exclusively all those years, I knew what that life was like, and I was kind of like, in my way, I was kind of like, man, like when you're exclusive with one artist, it's a different lifestyle.
Yeah, you can get a bit more freedom now and try other things.
So, and plus, I was like, I was a little reluctant at first, but I was like, what an opportunity! Like, of course, I have to like take a shot at that and whatnot. And then I think Ann and Tony Maserati and Jean Marie Horvat had all kind of recommended me to Teresa Labarra Barrera, her A&R, B's A&R at the time. And so Teresa calls, and she's kind of like quizzing me like, so what have you done, like and
interview.
Yeah, and I was like, well, me being me, I'm like, well, yeah, not too much, like I was with Alicia for like 6 years as an assistant / engineer, and I did this, I did that, and I was like, oh yeah, I was working with Nas at the time, so I was like, yeah, I've been doing Nas sessions and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I tracked, and co-mixed We Are Young, and
just listing off,
and she's like, oh yeah, and that was number one at the time. She's like, okay, and she's like,
good timing.
She's like, yeah, but are you fast? Like, and I was like, yeah, I'm fast. She's like, no, but are you really fast? And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty fast. Like I was not fast as I needed to be yet.
I was gonna say, like, was you fast enough?
I was fast, but like not like I said this in another interview a long time ago. I was like not Beyonce level fast at that point. And also the TDM systems in those days, they just, when you try to put a bunch of songs in there, like it's like kind of the way people will work these days is you'll have so many tracks in a session, you'll combine things together, and the CPUs can get really like overwhelmed. Well, back in those days, they could get overwhelmed. Now the computers can handle it, but so sometimes it would be like computer just crapping out, running like shit, and I'm trying to keep up, but at the same time, I had to get sharper, I had to get better, I always say that experience really taught me that, it's easy to be fast when you're having the ideas. But when you have an artist who's not, a computer technical type of, engineer-minded person, and they're having a million ideas and throwing stuff out there, and the speakers are up loud, and other people are in the room, like all collaborating, that's a different type of speed, is being able to interpret.
You gotta be able to focus through it. Yeah.
You got to be able to handle all the technical shit in one side of your brain, but then your creative brain is like hanging on their every word creatively to be able to keep up with all that. And that's where I had to improve quickly, and it was tough. Like I would be like stressing, I never really felt anxiety until I like was in that first album, that self-titled album. The beginning would be like, and I was like, trying to keep up with the pace, and like it's like the who's who of the music business in the room every day. It was like, you know, Tim's in there, Pharrell's in there, Dream's in there, B's in there, Jay's in there.
I was gonna say, did you have like a bit of imposter syndrome or anything at that point?
No, I felt like I could I felt like I could do it. I knew how to engineer. I was confident in my engineer skills, but it was just like when you have like cortisol pumping through your veins, you know, and you're like, damn, why did I make that dumb mistake? And then you just like spiral. You know, so it was kind of like that. So I was like the first time I had that, you know, I had to deal with that again. So it made me mentally stronger, more in control of my emotions in a way in those moments. And it, you know, and because I was real like focused on the mixing aspect even then, like, you know, creating cool effects and like with her, and like I would try things, and she would push me to do more of that sometimes, a lot of the time. And like, and so it became a thing where she was enjoying like kind of like the processing and stuff that we were doing together and whatnot, as far as like in the engineering aspect, and like her being like more do this or do that, or you know, and I'd be like okay, and I'd do all these like effects and shit. So that was like the fun part, and I could do that stuff. But yeah, just like sometimes when it became like editing quick and moving parts around and da 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 da, now I have a whole system, you know, where because we're constantly arranging. And I think I had never worked with an artist that, you know, was that creative in the sense of moving parts around, you know, and like and editing and changing it on a whim, like having a whole song mix and okay, now we're gonna rearrange it, you know.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say because there's
so I had to get better quick,
and there's I mean, she sounds like an amazing collaborator. They're big artists like that. You often think, especially now, of them having quite a specific vocal chain and quite a specific vocal sound.
Yeah,
she's someone who's really gone across many different genres. She's treated her vocals differently. Is that, you know, was that always the case? Is it like, okay, new project, like we're starting from scratch,
fresh chain,
everything's up for grabs, like we're gonna,
you know, I can't, you know, take any credit for like her creative process. I mean, she's very much a producer, and she's like a true artistic genius in every sense of the word, you know, and she has, you know, vision, you know, ideas in her head for days and of how she could do things. And as far as like vocal sounds and stuff like that, you know, she's very adventurous as far as like, you know, one song, you know, like Heated or something on Renaissance is like, you know, that rap comes in, there's distortion on that. You know, I'm using like air distortion, you know, like Cranked, you know, and you know, and then another song is a ballad where it's more hi-fi, more lush, and sometimes we might use reverb, sometimes it might be dry, but it's like, she's very her, you know, as I mentioned in she did this documentary that we did the other year, and I mentioned in that, you know, it's like, you know, some people, you know, paint with paintbrushes, and some people photographers, and
the Netflix documentary, you mean?
Yeah. No, it's a theatrical one.
Oh,
yeah,
wow,
it was only in the theaters. But I mentioned in that she paints with her vocal. You know what I mean? She can do anything with her vocal. She can make her vocal sound like anything. You know, and she's like a total, you know, not only just a genius at like traditional singing, but like just a genius at like doing things with her vocal. I don't even think are humanly possible, you know, from somebody else. And so she loves, you know, doing that. And it's really fun as an engineer to work with someone that creative and that visionary, you know.
Yeah,
super grateful. Yeah.
Do say like on like the latest project with her, was there like you know, like a few standout sort of like chain things that always are in the chain for her vocals that you sort of rely on to capture that right energy?
Yeah, that was
sound?
what I was trying to ask.
Oh, sorry,
yeah, like because
but
going from like a dance record to a country record.
Yeah,
you know, are you that's what
I
you're
use
saying,
pretty much the same stuff. It just depends on, you know, I'll use like the mic chain it's very widely publicly known. It's like, you know, a 251 to an Avalon to a CL1B. I'm doing no EQ, almost no compression on the way in. Like if you know, she sings at her loudest, the CL1B might compress like a
touch
dB
it
or
a
two.
bit.
Yeah, it's really just there. I like the top end that the CL1B adds. It adds a little sparkle, you know, like that, whatever it's doing.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And then in the box, it's just, you know, like, you know, EQ7 or R-Comp or CLA compressor or Waves de-esser or Fab de-esser or Fab filter Q3 or just whatever just whatever's there. I mean, those are the main ones that I'll grab for like distortion and stuff. Like it could be decapitator, it could be air distortion, it could be like just the same stuff everybody else is kind of using. It's just how you use it. I like tools that are easy to use quickly and you can just get a sound fast. And it doesn't want. It's not about tool. It's not about that. It's just about like. They want a tone, boom, done. Next thing. Because that's what they want. They want to move fast. It's like, how fast can you get it there? Or how fast can you anticipate the emotion of what they're trying to convey and how to use the technology to pull that emotion out of it without being told, Like sometimes you work with someone long enough and it's like, they glance at you and you're like, oh, you want that? Okay. It's like
one of the reasons why I wanted to like dive into that a little bit is like listening to not just Beyonce's vocals but like other female R&B projects that you've worked on. The vocals always feel very like open and free. Like they're not being over processed. It's like it's far from it. But the control at the same time is like perfect. Like, are you using a lot of like automation to get
automation for sure? Yeah. In like for instance, right? Like for all the young engineers out here, I'll give you a demonstration. Right, this microphone. So if someone's singing soft and they're really close up on the microphone, like, and you could compress that a bit harder and make it just jump out of the speakers in a sense. But if someone's singing really loud and they're back off the microphone and they're singing really hard, don't compress that. Just level it. Because if you compress it, you're going to add distortion and then it's going to hurt more, So it's, hopefully they'll work the microphone when they get loud, but, you want to hear the envelope of someone getting louder, like you want to hear that envelope. Because if you, for certain pop songs, you definitely want to control all that and make it just statically sit, and that works for certain music and certain songs. But in other songs, you want to hear the envelope of it getting louder. And I always, try to say, mention to her and like everybody else, it's just like, I don't want to be in the way of, I want to preserve her internal dynamics, or any singer that I work with. I want to preserve the internal dynamics when she naturally gets louder, when she naturally like pushes on something. I want you to feel that because that's where you get the emotion. Right? But if everything is so dialed and so static, you start to lose that emotion. And I feel like in certain, like there's certain projects that I hear nowadays and I'm like, they're great. They sound great. Every frequency is dialed perfect, but there's a lot of emotion from the way people naturally would do something that's getting robbed.
It's getting sucked out of it.
And it's more of like
it's a very different approach to like say a rap song or something like that, where you want it sort of like
static.
And just every word just pumping and hitting you in the face. This like you want the movement, and that's something that I'm always trying to improve on, especially with singers. I don't have the luxury right now of working with a lot of singers. It's something that I would like to do more of, but another thing with your vocals that I'm quite interested in is obviously there's a lot of bad element, not bad, but like unwanted elements in a performance, like our mouths moving, saliva, T's and C's, the P's, all of that stuff. Is that something that again you're using automation for and like dialing it in and homing in precisely?
The digital is unforgiving, and you got to go in and soften the certain S's and certain T's and stuff like that, because it'll just rip your face off in the end, or like so.
And you're doing that manually? Yeah,
I'd use a lot of clip effects, like go in with the clip EQ, or I'll just like clip gain it. I'll use the de-essers a little bit, but the waves, the original waves de-esser, sometimes the R de-esser, sometimes Fab Filter de-esser. Those 3 de-essers are probably my favorite. Once in a while, I use the McDSP one. It has a different grab. It works for certain things. But yeah, clip gaining is a great way to just go through and do that. And then also, sometimes the top end of the vocal will be perfect, but the S's are brighter. So I'll just go through and like dip down like 7K or like 8K or like 5K or whatever.
Yeah, because you don't want to mess with anything that's above that.
It's
nice and lush and bright.
Yeah.
And you're going on a case by case. You don't have a like, okay, my assistant's going to run in and just grab all that and just.
I like to do it myself because I feel like it's so specific,
Yeah, and it's an important part of those records.
It's so specific, and And I tend to do most of the stuff myself. And then also I need to hear it with the chain. I need to figure out what the chain's going to be. Like I don't have an exact chain that I use, like, so because I'm adapting to whatever it is. Like, even with the Gambino stuff, like the vocals are drastically different.
Well, that
song to
album
song.
is so
Yeah.
collective. It's just you couldn't really get a
No.
copy and paste chain going there.
No, and Brittany and Riley, who engineered that album, like they did a really, really good job at like, coming up with like chains and stuff that were working for Donald in the tracking environment. And so I'm carefully, like, I'm not mixing from printed stems or anything like
No.
that. Like I got every plugin running, and I'm going through and like very carefully like adding things to it, or maybe I might adjusting their plugin a little bit. Like, okay, let me bring that down a little bit, or let me blend the blend knob on that back a little bit. Like, not to upset the creative part of what they've done, but just to further dial it in and then and get more clarity.
Is that a technique that you use across the board? Like you will always receive the project and work off of the project rather than...
I mean, if something comes to me that was completely done in like Ableton or Logic,
you need the stems.
Yeah, I'll get stems, but then sometimes with vocals, I'll ask to also like, hey, can you give me the vocals with nothing on it, like unprocessed? Completely.
Yeah, have the wet and the dry.
Just so I have it, so I can, even just for a moment in the song, like just like, do a different, process or whatever. Because sometimes too, like you get into the mix and then people start hearing it and they're like, oh wow, they get ideas and then we're still in production mode.
Right, yeah.
And you make a whole bridge section and you change the whole vocal sound in the bridge or something and then go back. I mean,
you seem very open to that.
Oh yeah.
Which is, I don't think that's like a standard practice for engineers. Like, especially mix engineers, they're taking the project and they're like, well, we're mixing now, do you know?
Yeah.
Like, and obviously just to being able to have them in here, like, that feels like, a conscious decision that you've put into your process.
Well, it's just the way I've been trained,
Right.
It's just like all these years being a tracking engineer who's mixing at the same time, you just, you have to always say, music's the fun part. You get paid to be infinitely flexible. And, you got to, and sometimes you're, the song's coming out tomorrow. We've been working on the thing forever. And then all of a sudden, a light bulb happens in the artist's or producer's mind. And now they know what they want, more than what they had. So you change everything, or they re-sing it, or they're like, take all that off. And you just completely redo. So I'm very open to people having that light bulb moment,
Yeah.
Like,
how does if you mind me asking, if it's not a appropriate question, just say, but like in terms of like the business model of doing something like that, how does that like affect?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't mind, like I feel like, okay, for instance, like if I mix a song and I spend a day on it and, and then they hear it and they're like, oh man, I love it. Now I kind of like have an idea. I want to do this and this and this. I'll just be like, do it. I'll mix it in, like, because it's at the end of the day, it's like if I spend another like 2 or 3 hours on something or whatever, as long as they're paying me my rate or whatever, like it's cool. Like we'll figure it out. You know what I mean, I try not to nickel and dime in that way, and I try to get paid fairly. Obviously to where like there's room for things like that, but
So you're kind of like
I'm more
that
flexible
into your
like
system,
that. Yeah, I've done indie projects where they had a certain limited budget and they really and I would spend a long time on it, just because I wanted. I want to get it right. Like,
the passion overtakes it a bit.
The passion overtakes it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
like,
again, I think that's a unique and positive way of doing the business.
Now, if the rates are really low, and like and I'm really busy, if they can work around my schedule, yeah. But I just want them happy. Like I don't ever want anybody to like be like.
It's all about communication at that point, though.
Yeah, like or like bummed because they didn't have time to do that or whatever, because we have this technology now where we can just infinitely like change and tweak things or whatever. So I just want ultimately because the people will come back to you. If you show them that that patience and that love, like even with the Gambino stuff, man, I spent a long time on that stuff, like probably over a month.
Yeah.
And certain songs I would mix in half a day. Some songs I would spend 2.5 days on.
Right.
And I'm happy to do it. It's it's I'm not it's whatever it takes to get it there type of thing.
You mentioned about like how much the technology's grown. We spoke a bit on the phone before we came out here about how you use Audiomovers. in your workflow.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you use the plugin? And
oh, totally. Yeah, no, Audiomovers is the shit. There's been streaming softwares out there like for like a minute, and they've always been cumbersome and glitchy. But Audiomovers is the stable one that like gives you full quality. I stream in 32-bit, whatever the sample rate of the session is, and it works good. But yeah, it's essential at this point. I mean, on the Gambino album, Max Martin, he produced one of the tracks with them, and then I was streaming with him. He was in Europe somewhere.
Yeah.
And I was streaming with him, on the headphones or whatever, and to get it done, and we had a good time. And I never met him. Well, I met him once face to face, but I never worked with him.
Yeah.
And it was like super fun to be able to have that moment, and like that type of software like that's making it happen, it's bringing us all together.
You mentioned on the phone. I think we can say because it will be out. But
tell me what I want to hear.
But yeah, they got the talkback.
The auto-mute talkback.
Yeah.
So we got talkback. 128 channels now. Like local video file sync. So if you're ever doing stuff like you did for the remix of the NFL show and things like that, where you need video and things like that, we got a bunch now.
Oh, cool. So like you have, so I can have like a webcam type of vibe.
No, like
not video.
So like when you're doing like soundtrack stuff, so you have the clips.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean, and then you're cutting to clips, so you've got a reference. So like it'll sync you and them, so it'll generate a time code.
Oh.
So you just drag and drop the video file on their end, on your end. And then you're mixing, and they're seeing the footage.
Yeah,
Oh,
but not the camera. Like you still, still use like Zoom or.
I mean, if like you were doing, like you did with the Netflix NFL when you did, because you remixed it, right? You mixed live, and then you did it slightly changed, right?
It was just like tightening up levels and things like that.
Yeah,
but after the broadcast, just taking the ambience mics and all that stuff.
Yeah,
just making sure that it was all good. Like it was pretty much done beforehand.
Yeah.
But,
So like in that kind of scenario, if you had someone else and they were nowhere near you, you're still in the van, like they've got the footage, you've got the footage, right? And you're making those final tweaks.
Yeah.
And they can see it, and it's like boom, because it came from we're affiliated with Abbey Road. And the film soundtrack, they would always just have the footage locally, orchestras in there, and you're like, okay, we can see that the cue is like, like when Darth Vader gets his head chopped off, like
and it's all in sync.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but the main thing is with like the talkback and stuff.
Yeah,
they're listening.
Because it's always like a thing where like you're on FaceTime, and then if you don't remember to mute, and everybody always forgets to unmute.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to like rely on headphones otherwise, and you want to use your speakers.
Exactly.
It's great. It's good.
Yeah.
So we've I'm sort of painting a picture about how you mix and your like ideas behind your mixing, but I wondered if you could give me sort of like a sum up of your like philosophy when it comes to mixing.
I mean, just it's a producer and artist art form, as a mixer, you need to be a creative person, and you need to be in touch, really in touch with your emotions and being able to feel things, but at the same time, you got to make them happy, and you got to figure out what it is they're trying to do and make them happy and get them to their end result. Sometimes things come together quite quickly. When I mix outside projects from other people, sometimes like stuff is often things come quite good, and then they just need a little bit of massaging, and they need sorting out with the imaging, or like they need it a little bit louder, they need a little bit more depth and whatever, and then cool, you figure out how to do that because like the chains are really good, and like they got it dialed to a certain point that they really like. They just want that extra 5%, and then you got to know when that. And then sometimes you get stuff, that needs a lot of love, and they're like, we're kind of lost in the weeds on this one, and
help us get through it.
Sort of thing. So, and you got to be able to communicate well to like know when to do which. I think there's a lot of philosophy out there. A lot of mixers don't believe in, like they're you know, they want it to be really, really close. They're going to do their kind of mastering job, and they want to move on to the next record. There's nothing wrong with that business model, but it's limiting in a way because, you know, sometimes people track stuff and they're not really mixer minded, or they didn't have a good room or good speakers or a good environment to get it to a place or whatever, and they're relying on you to figure that bit out and like, you know, get it to where it needs to go. So it's just
Yeah.
my philosophy is like knowing when and where to use your skills, but ultimately, you know, not just you don't just do it because you want to do something. You do it because they need you to do it, or that's what they're trying to get to. Sometimes I'll get stuff and I'll look at it and I'll be like, okay, this I can see where they're trying to go with it. But if I just take that limiter off of it, boom, it pops. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then like now the transients come back and it's popping more. And then okay, you know, they're doing this distortion on this or whatever, but when I turn up loud on the big speakers, it's really hard to listen to. So let me see if I can find a better distortion, and I'll bypass that and I'll try a different distortion that might be creamier in that upper mid range. You know, and they get it back and they're like, yeah, like we were trying to get that distortion, but you know, now sometimes people like they really want that thing, so it's
Well,
just
and you
knowing
have
when.
the skill set and the knowledge, and that's why they're coming to you, you know, to sort of like get them
Yeah.
that extra 10% and like, you know, clear the picture. Like I always try to describe myself as like a transparent window. Like I have to be there. There's a physical barrier there,
Yeah,
but the artist should be able to see through me. I can't get in the way of their art, you know?
yeah,
And that's like how I try to think about
that's a
my
great way.
job,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. It's just we need to be self-aware people that are helpful. You know, at the end of the, it's a service industry. You know, um, and it's all about getting them to their end goal and getting them happy to where, you know, they love the end product, they love the result, you know.
Yeah.
And ultimately their fan base does too, you know. So that's the way I look at it, whatever that means. And I think there's definitely like mixers out there that, you know, really, you know, really want to kind of serve themselves in a sense, and I try not to be that way, you know. Like I want to be happy with stuff, but I would rather me be like, ugh, I wish we had done it more like this. But they're really happy, the fans like it, cool, bam, done.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
that's
Like
what's
I'd
important.
rather in the end of the
Tizio was saying a very similar thing yesterday, to be fair. Like, you know, where the industry's going, it's great, as we were saying at the beginning. Like, people, you know, you guys, when you go to NAMM, you're like superstars. You know, everyone is like, wants to say cool and chat and stuff. Like, especially certain guys.
Yeah,
But, you know, it's like, he was saying that people are now, that's their goal, is to get to that level, rather than becoming a good mix engineer.
yeah.
You know, so they're
yeah.
focusing on like getting shitloads of followers and stuff.
Man,
and
I never got into this to like work with pop stars and big artists. You know, I got in this to like be a working engineer in great facilities, and pay my bills. You know, pay my rent. You know, that's why I got into this. If you're getting into this to like to you know, to feed your ego, or like, you know, or like to be a rock, you know, like, you know, you should be an artist, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like you should do something else, like, because it's a very subservient job. You have to be a very subservient person when it comes to helping people, you know, get their thing, and not being the flashy one. I feel like, you know, if you want to be the flashy, like, personality, you know, or whatever, then you should be an artist, you know, like engineers, you know, I feel like it's so much about helping build that when someone else, you know, but, you know.
Yeah, being
but
a quiet support.
Yeah, being in the cut, being behind the scenes, being behind the glass, you know.
And where does like, we can see your Grammys from where we're sat right now.
Yeah, I was gonna. That was my point I was gonna make, because there is a little bit like, you know,
how does that feel? I mean, was that like okay?
No, it's validating. It's cool. Like it's you stay in it long enough and stuff like that, you know, happens. And you know, but if you just like, you know, like what TZ was saying, you know, from what you said, that, you know, just focus on developing your skills and your craft.
If that's your goal, then it's not the right goal.
Just you know, learn how to. I mean, I spent so much money just having a studio and doing records for free, you know, just trying to get my skills up. At a certain point, I was a tracking engineer in New York, and I didn't have my own studio yet, and I was working at Jungle all the time, and all of a sudden, an artist that I wasn't working with came into Jungle and took every room, and all of a sudden, I'm like, fuck. I ain't got no work because it's like, I'm like sitting there like
blocked
shit.
out.
So like I got to get my own room, and not to mention, like tracking is cool. Like I still track. I like to track, and whatnot. But mixing is where it's at. So in a way, that's the upper echelon of what we do, and I love doing that, and I wanted to get my skills to a higher level and see how far I could go with it. So either way, I got to get a studio. I got a studio. Spending all my money. When I bought this attack wall, like I remember I got the studio, I paid the rent, the first and last or whatever, and on it was in the Lower East Side, and then I needed to get acoustic treatment, and I was just gonna give it some panels and stuff or whatever, and then a friend of mine, he was like, man, you should get the attack wall, and I'm like, man, that's just like 15 grand. I had like 20K like to my name in life, at that time.
Yeah.
But I spent 15K on the damn attack wall, and it's the best money I ever spent. But it allowed me to sit in that room and like hone my craft and get my skills up to where like, I was a better engineer. And when I would get now, like that I was getting my skills up as a mixer, when I get in the studio with the artist and I got to be able to rough mix something really fast, it made that easier. And,
so you were investing in yourself rather than
100%.
getting your check and buying a nice rollie or something like that and stunting, Well, that's what you see people do.
Yeah, of course.
And I didn't, and I wasn't like posting, like no offense to anybody post online. I'll probably start doing it too, like at some point in my life, I'll probably start posting like crazy. But like either way, like I was like, let me just stay in the cut, and focus on my craft first and keeping the relationships tight and being available when things pop up, right? And then, it'll slowly, incrementally happen. That's the way I look at it.
I really like this thread and when Tizio said it, because, me trying to put my ego aside, I feel like I've been on that like tipping point.
Yeah.
Where, I love what I do and I love mixing and for big parts of, my life, it's just been dedicated to it. And then certain things like pull me the other way constantly. And you sort of have to give yourself a reality check and be like, actually, it's not what I'm doing it for.
Yeah.
And pulling yourself back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even just life and stuff like that, like pressure, like, got to buy a house, got to do this.
Yeah.
All of this shit. And you're like, fucking hell, like, I just want to make cool sounding records, But no, I really
cool people
appreciate
like want to trust you. It's like the love. Like when people love what you do, like that's really rewarding as well. And
well, and having the Grammys is nice as well.
I mean, it's validating. Like I'd rather have them than not, and that's for sure. But at the end of the day, like I remember I used to not have them up, and like people will come over and they're like, "Where the Grammys at?" I was like, "Oh, I just like have them over here."
They're for amazing records
and
as well.
They were like, "Nah, you got to have them up." Like you got to because
you're nominated for 2 more this year, right?
No, way more.
Oh, was it more?
Like 9 or something.
Well, she's up for a whole bunch. We don't, as engineers, we don't win. I'm not sure how many.
Because you'd be up for record of the year.
Yeah,
so you'd be up
record
for that.
year, album of the year.
So you got 2 of those because the Gambino and Beyonce.
Yeah. So I'm nominated for Gambino for best progressive R&B.
You're up for
amazing.
3, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
how
weird
exciting.
how they kind of when, for some things you don't. Yeah. Tizio had to explain that to me. I remember.
Yeah,
back
you don't
in the
always
day,
win.
like,
I forgot all the categories you win.
Have you got your suit tailored yet?
I don't actually. I've gained weight and I don't have a suit that fits me right now, and I was busy and I didn't get one made, so I got to figure something else out. But like I'll figure it out. But
just go in the Mixwell jumper, man.
I don't want to. I don't want to be like, "Whoa, he's disrespectful." But
there's got to be 1 or 2 tuxedo shops in LA.
I know. I have weird dimensions though. I really need. It's like if I'm gonna wear a suit, I really want it to be like tailored.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're quite tall. I didn't realize that. Yeah. When I came in, I was like, oh shit.
I know, it's funny. Like sometimes I look at content of me on the internet, and I just like, man, I look so different.
Let's do, because we're approaching time.
Wrap,
but let's do a quick fire round and then one more question. It's still tracking, I think. Yeah.
Looking at the time. All good.
So just whatever pops into your head, be it a product or like, an idea or a way that you like to work, whatever it is.
Okay.
So we'll go with speakers.
Augsburgers.
Okay. Headphones.
Not my favorite.
Okay. Compression.
Less is more.
Amazing. I was hoping for that one. Vocals.
Variety.
Limiter.
Invisible.
LUFS. Your honest answer.
I don't know. Just 7 but dynamic. You know
Okay, all right. 7 but dynamic. All right. Studio snack.
Green juice.
Green juice.
Creation
Why is
organic.
everyone's so healthy. This is such a running chain. Like, I just want someone to say pizza for once, man. And make me feel good about myself.
No, that's like a great way to like.
yeah, exactly.
That's
yeah,
after this. But yeah, Creation Organic. Shout out.
Nice. I
Need the hookup.
Last one. Microphone.
Oh, oh man, microphone. I mean,
With someone that had, such a long tracking career and passionate about it.
I would have to say those old engineers is a long-winded answer, but those old engineers, man, those German guys, those Austrian guys, they still, you get a good one of those, man. They're just like, they're still the best. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
to me, yeah. There's like magic in those microphones.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
European.
Yeah, it's just something in the water back then, Like,
So like more like the vintage stuff.
The vintage stuff, yeah, that's what I mean. Like the old stuff, there's still something about it,
Yeah, it's true. I was in a session once. It was with the lead singer of the Libertines, and he had like a vintage Neumann in his hand. And he was rolling it around in his hand, and it's his. And I was like, bro, like, that's a really nice microphone. Like, can you be careful with it? And he was like, what, this? And just dropped it on the floor. And I was like, bro,
have you seen,
me and you are going to scrap.
Have you seen John McBride from Blackbird, his trick?
Oh, when he throws it.
I
have
seen
that.
Yeah.
The stereo 250.
Yeah, because he got a fake one, mate.
Yeah, but this one fake. And he genuinely dropped it. No.
Yeah, I saw that video, and I thought he actually was doing it. Like, I don't know. I just like, I totally bought it.
No, I went out there to film, and one of the guy I was with filming. He like launched it at him.
Yeah, I saw the video.
Yeah.
And very lastly, just before we wrap up, I don't want to take up any more of your time.
I mean, we can keep going.
But any advice? I'm really asking for me. But like, any advice for like guys or girls, engineers trying to make it in the business?
I mean, I said this the other day at NAMM, just like somebody, you have to decide what type of music you want to be a part of, and you have to move to where that music is being made. If it's being made in your community, then stay in your community and build that music. Build your, get on with your team, and sleep on the floor, sleep on the couch, live and breathe it. You have to be obsessive. I feel like, you have to like really put in the time. Don't worry about the money in the beginning, just stay in it, but if the music that you want to do is being made at like a badass studio in LA or New York or wherever, London, then you gotta move there, and you gotta figure out like how to get in there and be helpful and be humble and like, be fun to be around. Just to get in and learn from the people that are making that stuff. That's how I got here. It's just I moved to New York. I got a job at a studio that was making music that I loved. I built relationships with people that were doing the records that I loved, and just stayed in it. I didn't get in it to be a well-known engineer. I didn't get in it to like work on #1 records. I didn't get in it to win Grammys.
Yeah.
I got
you just
into
knew
it.
that this is what you wanted to do.
I was like, if I could do this for the rest of my life, then, how cool would that be? I'll be one of these, somebody's got to do it. So like, I could do that. And then when you approach it that way, you have a lot more patience, because you can be like, you can walk in gratitude, as my friend Kyrie likes to say. Like you can walk in gratitude even in the stressful situations, because you're like, you feel so lucky.
Thankful to be there.
Yeah, you're thankful to be doing what you're doing. It gives you energy.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's a sort of thing that I've been trying to like play into my life recently. I can't remember what the phrase was, but it's like a Buddhist phrase where you do something you love and do something that you're good at, and try to combine them and do it in service of others. And that way is like, can't ever go wrong with that.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Stuart, thank you so much.
Cool, brother.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah.
This is my camera here. You guys at home have been watching the Unsung podcast by Audiomovers. I'm your host, MixedByJocelin. As always, we've got Matt, Stuart White. Thank you. We're in his beautiful home. And yeah, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, do all that good stuff. And we will catch you guys in the next one. Safe. Nice. Sweet.
It's a wrap.
Cool.